So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Victor and I run a clothing brand called Crown Saints, and I was able to sell my clothing brand Crown Saints from zero to over $1 million in revenue within just my first year of business. And I'm going to explain to you how exactly you can replicate just that. So I recently just asked my following on Instagram, have you started a clothing brand yet? And if you haven't, why not? And the answer choices immediately broke down into two different groups. The first group hasn't started anything at all. Maybe they even had a logo sketched out somewhere, but they never actually started and moved on to building out their clothing brand. And maybe that's because every time you think about starting, it feels like there are 50, 100 different decisions you have to get right before you actually start. And the second group actually does already have something moving. They have a name, they have a logo, maybe they even have a manufacturer they reached out to and actually got their first pieces in, but they end up being stuck in a spot without being able to grow because nobody has ever actually taught them the full strategy that goes into actually building a successful, profitable clothing brand. And they're just watching different YouTube videos and piecing together clips of information they found from TikTok and Instagram to actually build out their clothing brand, and that's terrible. So if you're in either one of those groups, maybe you just have an idea in your head to start one, or you've actually started your clothing brand but you can't scale the way you want to, then this video is exactly for you. So I've worked with so many clothing brand owners in this space, and these are the main issues that people actually face when they start building out their clothing brand. A lot of clothing brands don't fail because the founder lacks creativity, but they fail because they make a handful of decisions in the wrong order. With no one there to flag the issues that came up with their clothing brand, things become expensive and they end up just failing overall. But the most common issue that most people face within their clothing brand is not fully knowing their brand identity. People come into the space thinking they can try to sell and market their clothes for everyone, but if you try to market your clothes for everyone, then you're selling to no one. So if you're trying to come to the space saying, oh, you're making streetwear for younger people, or oh, I'm making clothes for people who like music, that's not a customer. That's literally just a huge glob of people you're trying to market towards, which is not going to work. The brand has no specific person it's talking to, so nothing about the design, the content, or marketing actually lands a sale anywhere. And then another one is if a lot of people actually try to price their products based off of what they feel is right, which is terribly wrong. Or maybe they just try to go based off of what their competitors charge, but without actually calculating your cost of goods, shipping, ad spend, marketing expenses. A lot of clothing brand owners think they're making money, but they're actually losing out on profits every single month because they're not properly tracking and calculating how much they're actually pulling in profit-wise. Another big issue a lot of upcoming clothing brand owners face coming into the game is what I call a Pinterest folder problem. People fall in love with every aesthetic or idea that comes across in their head instead of actually committing to just a singular one. The brand that ends up giving off 5 different energies or is targeting 5 different groups of people entirely throws off any customers that are coming to their page because a customer can't easily identify and emotionally connect with what they're trying to stand for. The photography, the website, the ad spend. And I say the most expensive mistake of all is coming into the clothing brand space thinking it's a get rich quick scheme. I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. Starting a clothing brand is not a way to get rich extremely fast. The whole reason why we're coming into the clothing brand space is so we can actually build a long-lasting, long-term community of people surrounded by one identity through clothing, through jewelry, through any apparel item you want to sell to your target audience. That's why we're building a clothing brand. Clothing brands survive off of something called LTV, which is the lifetime value of a customer, and that only compounds over time. So if you're coming into the clothing brand space thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get rich so quick, I want you to immediately throw that expectation out of your head, because even though you can make a lot of money with your clothing brand, if your only purpose and reason for starting one is to make money, then you've already lost. And every single issue I told you is what I faced as a clothing brand owner that has generated over $1 million. I started my clothing brand Crown Saints, which is a faith-driven streetwear clothing brand that I built by myself completely from scratch. No investor, no partner, no one to call on when I needed help with building my business. But now, today, as we're watching the video, my clothing brand does make over 6 figures every single month. And that's not because I just got lucky one time, but because I made almost every single mistake I just mentioned earlier. I paid for it personally. I figured out what actually works, and I was able to capitalize off of that and scale my business. But what separates me and this video from the other videos you may see online on how to actually start and scale a clothing brand is that I'm just not another founder talking about numbers they did before with their previous clothing brand, but I'm still a company that's scaling my clothing brand to $1 million a month right now. I didn't just survive those mistakes, but I went back through every single one of them and built an actual system out of it. Not vague advice, but a real sequence in order that removes all the guesswork that most clothing brands face when they first start out. I've already taken people through this exact process, people who started with nothing, who would have spent the next year going through the same trial and error that I went through with my clothing brand. And instead, they were able to skip through to what actually works and what will actually help them build and scale their clothing brand. And that's the difference between somebody who got lucky once and someone who can hand you the full blueprint that you need to actually execute it. But with all that being said, here's what the video actually is. I'm going to walk you through the entire thing start to finish. So please, if you can, sit down, grab a paper and a pencil, and prepare to take some notes, because I'm going to give you the full guide on how to scale your clothing brand to 6 figures, just like I did within my first 3 months of starting my business. I'm going to tell you about the mindset you need to have, your brand identity, the product, your website, how to actually run a drop, organic content, influencer marketing, email and SMS, paid ads, and eventually building a full team around your clothing brand. That way, things don't depend on you forever, because at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, we all want to go out and enjoy and have our free time. You should run your business shouldn't run you. And this is the exact same blueprint that I use to scale Crown Saints to $1 million in just 1 year, and how I also plan to scale it to $1 million a month within the next year. So here's how I built a 7-figure clothing brand at 18, the complete blueprint that you need to actually start and scale your clothing brand. And no money I could afford to lose. But by 17, I had touched $1 million in revenue, and now I'm 18, and this is everything that I learned throughout the process of growing my clothing brand, and I'm going to drop it all here for you guys to learn and follow along, so you guys can start your own clothing brand and become successful just like I have. So most people who try to start a clothing brand are doing it completely wrong. They design something, they order 100 units, they start posting it, they get 3 sales, and they think the brand failed, and that's not the case. The brand didn't fail, they just went through the process the wrong way. A lot of people try to design first, get inventory, build the store, post content, and then just hope they can actually sell the product they just made, but that's entirely wrong. You first want to build the brand identity, validate the product through posting on social media, build the audience first, launch with an actual system, and then scale what works. So before you actually even order your first bulk, you actually start to actually promote your brand and the vision you're trying to bring behind it. That way you don't waste money and thousands of dollars getting a bulk that doesn't even sell. So I'm going to cover every step on how to do this in the right way. So I want you guys to make sure you're absolutely taking notes so you can come back and build your brand properly the right way. So, but before we start, of course, I built my clothing brand Crown Saints from 0 to 7 figures before I turned 18. I didn't have anything and no one to learn from. And I'm dropping this video because when I first started my clothing brand, I wish I had this video to help me out starting off, because when I started off, it was just me by myself. So my clothing brand has done over $1.3 million in sales. I personally spent over $300,000 on ads, and I've built up a community of 80,000 people across all social media platforms. And unlike a lot of people you may see online, I'm actually still running and growing my clothing company, unlike the other people that have maybe started a business and then stopped it and then went into teaching people. No, I'm still a founder of a clothing brand myself, still scaling and growing my business alongside you guys. So everything I'm teaching you in this video is what I'm currently doing now as a brand owner, and not what I learned and not something somebody did a year ago and think they're the master of. So when it comes to being an entrepreneur in any business space, not just being a clothing brand, mindset is the most important thing. There's one belief that separates brands that make it from brands that actually quit, and that is you are building something real and not testing to see if it works. So people with the testing mindset, they post inconsistently, they quit when the first job doesn't do how they want it to do. They judge the brand within its first few months of starting, and they treat every loss as proof it doesn't work. But when you're in the building mindset, this is exactly why I say it's so important to not come into the clothing brand space with just the idea of making money, because I promise you, you will end up disappointed because we are building something real, and this is not a get rich quick scheme. So somebody with a good mindset has a building mindset. They show up every single day regardless of results. They treat the first job as data and go back, reflect on it, and figure out how they can improve, and without judging the brand too early on, so they give it time to actually grow, scale, and compound into something long lasting that can support them and their dream lives. So whenever coming into the clothing brand space, treat every single loss as a lesson and make sure you remember it so you don't repeat it. Even my clothing brand, Crown Saints, doesn't work immediately. Before I actually dropped my clothing brand, I actually spent a month to 2 months just entirely building it out. No money coming in, follower count was low, but I was able to succeed because I knew that I was building something real and long lasting, not just for the sake of getting money. But after those first 2 months of me just building out my clothing brand, once I actually started selling clothes, my first month I did 10K, my second month I did 30K, my second month I did 35K, and my third month I did 45K. And next thing you know, within those 3 months of me actually launching my business to the public, I had already generated 6 figures. But that's because I took the time to actually build out what my brand actually stands for. So here's what average brand growth looks like for successful clothing brands, not just mine, but a lot of other brand owners I know in the space. This is kind of the typical timeline for them. First, month 1 to 3, not a large audience. Sales are a lot slower. They're paying for everything out of pocket without the brand funding itself yet. And that's actually where most brands quit. And if you quit here, you're missing out on so much, because from month 6, you actually do start to build that community, build that following. You get a lot of traction. You can figure out what works and what you need to dial in to actually scale and grow your company. And then by a year, you should have a proven product that's consistently pulling in money for you every single day, consistent drops, and an email list that's coming back to shop with your clothing brand every time. That's still going. So the brands that did win aren't better than you, because at the end of the day, we're also human, but they just stayed consistent and they didn't give up on their clothing brand. So whenever you first start a clothing, so whenever you're first actually starting and scaling your clothing brand, you want to make sure that you're checking your numbers first. That could be revenue, ad spend, emails, people opening up, and the best sellers. You want to review the content that performed and why, so you can reiterate the ones that did work, so you can actually scale your clothing brand even quicker. You want to focus on one high leverage task every single day, whether that's product, content creation, ads, or even speaking with a manufacturer. You never make a business decision based off of what you feel, but you only want to make decisions towards your business based off of actual data. But with that being said, when it comes into building a clothing brand, I want you guys to all keep in mind, and now we're actually going to talk into the nitty gritty on how to actually start and cultivate your clothing brand to release to the public. So what you want to figure out is your brand identity. And this is literally the most important part of building your business, because this is the full foundation your brand operates on. There's a difference between a clothing line and a brand. I want to explain that here, why. And I want to explain that now, why that is. Most people build clothing lines just trying to sell clothes, and they wonder why it doesn't work. But a clothing line is just products you have for sale with no deep meaning, no competitors on the price, and it dies whenever the trend ends. So like, let's say this could be for people who are reselling products, but that's more for quick money. But what a brand actually does is it stands for something. It stands for an idea. It stands for an emotion. It stands for a belief. It stands for one identity. It creates belonging to a group of people. So you're able to form a community around the brand you're building. It competes on identity with other brands in the same niches, and it only gets stronger and compounds over time. A brand is what people feel when they a brand is what people feel when they wear your product. A clothing line is just a fabric with a logo on it. So people who are resellers and they're reselling like vintage clothing, like Levi, Carhartt, all those other stuff, those customers can't come back and shop with them again, because they're more just selling the clothes instead of actually building a brand and identity behind what they are making. But every strong operates on 3 layers, and most brands only have the first one done, and that's a surface level. So surface level is kind of what you sell. Like if you sell streetwear clothing, elevated fashion clothing, formal clothing, vintage clothing, every brand can fit in this category. And this is literally just it's this and this is literally like pure surface level information, because this is not what emotionally separates you from most brands. It just kind of helps you align the vision you have with their products or what you are trying to sell to the community, because at the end of the day, we are selling clothes and you want to figure out what type of clothes you want to bring to the world. Layer two is going to be the problem, and this is the gap your clothing brand fills or the problem your clothing brand addresses. So, for me, for example, uh, one of the problems my clothing brand addresses is that most Christian clothing is outdated and doesn't fit the young culture young believers actually live in. Because a lot of Christian clothing you may see is more for the older audience, like plain t-shirts, corny stuff for like 40, 50 years old. But the younger generation, like 16 to 34, don't have any fashionable streetwear clothes where they can actually spread their faith. So that's a problem my clothing brand addresses. Or like let's say, or the clothing brand Comfort, for example. Comfort is a $1 billion industry, and they address mental health issues like anxiety through the fabric of their clothing. That's a problem that the $1 billion company Comfort addresses. So you want to figure out what problem you want to fix or address with your clothing brand. Layer three is going to be the identity, and that's why somebody should believe in your brand. What is the one idea that's pulling in people to relate and want to be part of the community you're building around your clothing brand? Like for me, there are a lot of people in the younger generation that struggle with spreading the word of God. And even though they struggle, they're tired of struggling. And that's where my clothing brand comes into place. It's a community of people who once struggled to spread the word of God, but they want to step out of their comfort zone and live for the Lord. That's a problem my brand addresses. And that's why people come and want to become part of the community that I'm building with my clothing brand. So your identity should be the reason why people actually want to come and not only just shop with your products, but be a long-term customer, LTV. You want to always remember that word, LTV, lifetime value of customer. Comfort doesn't just sell hoodies, they sell emotional regulation, addressing those mental health issues. Cortez doesn't sell clothing, they sell a cultural exclusion. So they build an exclusive culture around their clothing brand. Even my clothing brand, we're just not a streetwear brand. We sell conviction that's worn through our clothing. So you want to make sure that your third layer is something that can allow people to feel like they belong. The more specific you are, the more powerful your brand becomes. If your brand is too broad and you're saying that you're just making clothes for younger people, that competes with everyone and it resonates with no one. So you're not going to make any money or any sales by having your clothing brand too broad. And you can dial it down to something like a streetwear brand or a anime based clothing brand, but you're still competing with so many people, and you can make a little bit of it, but don't expect it to grow and become anything crazy. But once you dial it down to something more specific, like an anime based clothing brand for people who are into the alt fashion, or for me personally, um, a Christian streetwear clothing brand for people who are done hiding their faith. You want to have it as niche down as possible, because once you can fit the pocket and the meaning of your clothing brand into this very, very small hole, it becomes so much easier to target towards that super small customer base that you just niche down your clothing brand to. And narrow doesn't mean small. Like for example, I sell to Christians, and there are 2.4 billion Christians in the world. So you narrowing it down, your audience is just a way for you to easily market towards one group of people, so your audience can immediately recognize and connect with what you are trying to build. A good niche positioning statement that you guys can copy is your brand is what surface level for a specific group of people that struggle or face issues with so and so. Like for me, for example, Crown Saints is a streetwear clothing brand for Christians who struggle with spreading the word of God. So you want to take that niche positioning statement and you want to fill it out, and you want to fill it to an idea that you have with your clothing brand. But those three pillars are still only surface level, because with this you want to go in as deep as possible. So here's actually how you go deeper. You want to know their demographic information. So whenever you're thinking about your customer, you want to think about everything that has to do with the customer, because you want to know who you're trying to sell to more than you pretty much know yourself. So this is going to be how old are they? Where do they come from? How much do they make? What are they into wearing? What do they stand for? What do they believe in? What do they like to do in their free time? What hobbies do they have? You want to know every single thing about your customer, probably even more than you know yourself, so you know exactly how you can sell and market to that customer. Sorry. First is their demographic foundation. So this is going to be like race, how old are they, where are they from, how much do they make. This is just basically a very founder-based level, because these are essentially the 5 pillars you need to actually understand your customer on a deep level. Next thing is going to be understanding their psychographic core, and this is going to be like, what do they believe in, how do they see themselves, what do they stand for, what are things they don't go for, what are things they don't like. This also stems into their frustration map. What frustrates them? What problem do they face that your brand addresses? Fourth, their aspiration map. What do they want to become? How do they want to feel? Where do they want to see themselves? What do they long for? Next is going to be the identity gap, and that's going to be, what is the current distance between who they are and what they want to be, and how can your brand step in between this gap and fill it in for them. For example, my clothing brand, Crown Saints, my ICP is, most Christian clothing looks like a Sunday school prop. I want to represent my faith without looking like I'm trying to look too religious. And an aspiration could be, I want people to ask me about my faith because of what I'm wearing, and not because of what I'm preaching, which is through the words. So this is a frustration and an aspiration that I have with my clothing brand. I actually do have multiple, because we'll get into that later, but that's an example that you guys can follow and create for your clothing brand. So I want you guys to write your own frustration map, because learning all this information without applying it is useless. If you want to grow and actually scale a clothing brand, make sure you're not only consuming information, but you're actually applying the action that needs to be done to build your clothing brand. So write your own frustration map. 5 specific points: demographic, psychographic, frustration, aspiration, identity gap, and every pieces of content. And make sure that every single piece of content that you make moving forward with your clothing brand speaks to at least one of these 10 things. The more it speaks to, the more in depth it is, the better it is. Now we're going to actually talk about building out your name and logo. After you have your brand identity set, you want a name, logo, and aesthetic that actually addresses that brand identity, because this either creates trust instantly and allows people to resonate with your clothing brand, or builds doubt. So here's a checklist that you guys want for your name. You want your name to connect to the purpose, not just what you're trying to sell. You want your name to be owned, which means no other brands can take it, steal it, run with it. You want to set yourself apart. You want it to have room to grow beyond just one product. Like, for example, the word comfort. They started off selling comfortable clothes, but now they sell blankets and travel clothes, other things like that nature. So you want it to have room to grow beyond just the initial product you want to sell. Next thing is community language. Community language actually plays a super large part in your clothing brand. We're going to get into that later on, but you want it to be able to resonate with your clothing brand. Like, comfort is a good example. Supreme is really good. Supreme is not just a regular clothing brand. Supreme comes from a place of high identity or being elevated. So to find your name, I want you guys to write 50 words connected to your brand identity. And then you want to pull the 10 words that resonate with your clothing brand and your brand identity the most, and then combine them, test them out loud, see if they work. Like, there's actually a clothing brand called Elevated Faith, which is fire. They took the word elevated and they took the word faith, put it together, and they created something amazing with their clothing brand. Actually, what I did for my clothing brand, Crown and Saints, took 2 words that had a really strong meaning to me, put them together, play around, try out, variate the spelling similar to comfort, see what works best for you. It's almost similar with your logo, what you do with your name. You want your logo to be able to work as a tag size and a hoodie size before you can actually commit to it. Avoid templates, generic symbols, anything that looks like it could belong to another brand, because at the end of the day, you want to separate yourself. A lot of people just make the logos based off of the name of their company and a unique logo or font, which is actually really okay because your name already does everything it needs to. Your logo just capitalizing off of it. But if you do want a special logo apart just from your name, you want to make sure that it's not generic and it's actually a strong brand logo that can stick out to your ICP. Next thing is aesthetic. This is going to be everything. We're going to talk about Instagram later, but basically somebody should be able to come to your page and basically see the whole aesthetic and what your brand is actually living for. So this is going to be everything visual, such as your color palette, typography, photography style, packaging. Pick 2 to 3 colors and use them everywhere without exception. And you want to build a mood board, you can build a mood board off of Pinterest and grab 20 to 30 images that feel like what you want to build with your clothing brand. Also, you want to make sure that you're documenting all of this because you essentially want to kind of build like a Bible around your brand. That's going to be everything that you've ever possibly done with your clothing brand. And without it, you kind of do guesswork or content drifts. Your brand slowly stops looking like itself. You want to make sure you keep everything in line. So with it, every designer, creator, team member, everything works together from the same source, which is what you're building right now. So while you're building it, you want to make sure what goes into it is going to be the purpose stacks, the 3 layers we just built earlier, your niche positioning statement, name your rationale, logos, color codes, verbal references, visual references, and character references. Verbal references are words that relate to your clothing brand and your identity. Visual references, same thing. Pictures of different things that resonate with your clothing brand. Characters are going to be people that resonate the idea you're trying to build with your clothing brand. You don't need to hire any design agency for this. A shared Google Doc with just these 8 sections is enough to brief any creator, designer, or content creator who you end up bringing onto your team later on. After you have your brand identity, your name, your logo, and your aesthetic, now comes to actually building out your first product. And this is what you sell, how you sell it, and why it is so important for this product to be right. A winning product makes the wearer feel something specific the moment they put it on before any marketing appears. I've written down 4 brief sections for this. This is going to be the quality before it's seen. So heavyweight fabric signals the product takes itself seriously, and this is a high quality piece of fabric compared to just getting clothes off of like Shein or Temu. You want your brand to actually stick out, and this happens before somebody even looks at the design. Like if I'm scrolling on my feed and I seen a hoodie that's complete polyester, I promise you I'm not even staying to watch the rest of the video after I maybe see the fabric is polyester, because I'm not going to buy that either way. Next is fit over graphics. A perfectly good fit hoodie with a minimal logo beats a generic fit with an elaborate print, because a fit is felt every single time it's worn, and a graphic is only noticed one time. And what I mean on this is earlier when I was telling you to actually create the surface for a clothing brand, it can dive deeper because a lot of people do like certain things. Some people like boxy fit tees, some people like regular shaped tees. You really just want to kind of envision what your audience would like and curate a clothes that fits. Also, legitimacy next to what they already wear. This product has to look real next to brands your customer already knows. And if it looks like a step down, it'll always stay in their cart. And what I mean is this is when you download your clothing brand, you're going to have some competitors. No matter how bad you niche down your clothing brand, you're going to maybe have at least some competitors in your space. And you want to give the people a reason to come and shop with your products versus just buying from their competitors, because if what you have looks super sloppy compared to what your competitors in your niche are selling them, then they'd rather just go shop with their competitors rather than you. Next thing is detail of uniqueness. These are going to be perceived value builders. So this is going to be labels, hardware used to make the clothes, wash treatment, things people notice once they immediately see the clothes, because you don't want to just sell a plain product, right? Especially when you're first starting off. You want to have a lot of value boosters on your clothing brand. For example, I'm actually in my warehouse right now. This is not my clothing brand. This is one of my partner's clothing brands. He sells these shorts, amazing fit, embossed embroidery right there. More embroidery with a custom font right there. Jewels on the pocket right here. Along the pant lining. You want to have as many value boosters on your piece as possible, because I promise you, if I were to just pull up a plain white tee and stick this on there, I promise you is going to be a lot harder to sell because it looks very basic and generic. So when it actually comes to the fabric of your perceived quality, getting this wrong means you're selling something that can feel cheap. So whenever you're going to plan to talk to your manufacturer in the future, keep this down. They're going to ask what GSM the fabric is. Under 180 GSM is a super thin t-shirt. You want to avoid selling those. 220 to 240 GSM is kind of like your average typical premium t-shirt range. If we're selling hoodies, under 250 GSM will feel super cheap because there's no reason why a hoodie should feel as thin as a regular t-shirt. Midweight hoodies are between 280 to 320 GSM. This is a midweight hoodie. It still has some weight to it, but it's still somewhat light on the body. And then premium is heavyweight, which is over 460 GSM. Or actually, I say anything over 360 GSM is good for premium heavyweight. And that's what most serious brands that actually price their products high are using for their clothing brands. So if you're selling your pieces at $75 or above, even like $65 for that matter, you want your fabric to be able to justify the price, because if somebody looks at your item, it looks cheap, they're not going to pay a high price for it. So you want to make sure that what you're pricing the products at match the quality of it, of course. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of things different people use: embroidery, screen print, puff print, DTF, DTG. There are a whole bunch of different prints that you can use for a clothing brand when it comes to making your first piece. Just figure out what works best for you. You can talk to your manufacturer about it and he'll help you out. But getting into actually talking to your manufacturer, we're running a clothing company. Your manufacturer is probably one of the most important things you need in your business, because a manufacturer relationship is one of your most important business relationships. If you choose a wrong one, every product problem is going to trace back to your manufacturer. So if you want to actually find a manufacturer, I recommend the best place to go is Alibaba, because a lot of people do end up trying to get a manufacturer, getting scammed in the process of finding one, or they just get a manufacturer that's really bad, and you can avoid doing that by just going on Alibaba. You want to make sure you filter by verified supplier and trade assurance. That way you don't get scammed or you're trying to work with a manufacturer, because these people are already verified. Um, Even Instagram, I don't recommend Instagram search too much actually. I say only do that if you get referred by somebody. So if you know somebody running their own clothing brand, they get their product sourced from a specific manufacturer, and they put you on, then yes, it's worth it, because at the end of the day, they're credible because somebody you know uses them. And that's how you find a trusted manufacturer. Next is outreach. So whenever you are outreaching to manufacturer, make sure you don't just talk to one manufacturer. Make sure you talk to multiple, so you can compare and see which will be the best one to work for you. So whenever you actually outreach to them, you're going to send them a picture of your mock-up, the product you want to create. You're going to ask them to see similar products and pieces they have made similar to your product, right? Just to make sure they can actually pull off the product you're trying to create. Ask questions about pricing, the minimum order quantity, how long it takes to actually make the clothes, and what fabric options they provide for you to choose from. And you want to make sure that you compare all the responses and see what will be best for you. As you are asking these questions and you're getting those answers back, you also want to check out their communication too. Make sure they're responding fast. Make sure everything actually references back to signaling their credibility and who they are as a manufacturer. After you've outreached and you found out your manufacturer, next thing you're going to be sampling. You're going to, of course, pay for samples. Samples are somewhat expensive because they are making one custom piece tailored to your clothing brand instead of making a vast amount of it. So once you receive your sample, uh you're going to first evaluate the sample, make sure it's good quality, make sure it feels good, make sure the size chart is correct, grab a ruler or something, measure, make sure everything is good with the product. Even throw it in the washer too, because some products may look good when you first get them, but once they touch water, they're absolutely destroyed. So make sure you throw them in the washer too, inspect them again, wash them again, see if it still looks brand new, and then make your final decision on whether that sample was good for you or not. You never want to skip the sample process to save time, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have these same headaches when you place a bulk order for 100, 200 pieces. Make sure you are testing those samples out as much as possible, so when it comes to placing your bulk, you avoid any issues. Of course, if you guys need a trusted manufacturer, all my students have access to my manufacturer. He's amazing, good quality, lower prices, fast shipping, good communication. So if you guys need my manufacturer, you can always hit me up. and I'll be happy to share. Now, most brands actually do underprice their products, and I want to tell you why. So once your samples and your product is actually good, you never want to underprice your products. When you first start out, I recommend you pricing your products. You want to actually look at your competitors and see what they're pricing it at first, because you don't want to underprice yourself. But a general rule of thumb is to go whatever it costs to make the clothes and multiply it by 2.5 to 3.5. So let's say, for example, I got a long sleeve thermal sweater made, right? And it costs $20 to get it made and get landed here. I'll sell it for either 45. I'll sell it for anywhere between 45 to $70. So your full margin rule, this is how much you're actually profiting after you sell one piece of clothes, is going to be how much it costs to make the clothes, how much it costs to get it over here, how much you had to spend on marketing to get the piece, plus 20% profit equals what you should sell your price at, because you don't want to make anything under a 20% profit margin. As a matter of fact, a lot of clothing brands are actually closer to the 40%, 60% range. So an example of this is $20 to get your clothes, $5 for shipping, $10 on ad cost equals $35 plus 20% of that 35 is $7, which equals $42 minimum for the clothing. So sub references for clothing brands: if your t-shirts are lower quality, I say $20 to $30. If they are of the higher quality, $35 to $55. If they're super premium, a lot of value boosters on there, $60. Hoodies, $40 to $60, $60 to $90, $100 plus. Never underprice your hoodies, because you don't want to run yourself short when you could sell higher. This is actually an issue I had when I first started off. I was actually selling my pieces for $45, not making too much profit. Bumped the price, people were still buying. Bumped the price again, people were still buying. So never underprice your products, know your worth. A lot of people do associate price with quality as well. So if they come on your website and they see a cheap price, they're going to assume cheap quality as well. So it's just a bad experience overall for you as a seller and to the customer. Now that you actually have your sample and everything is going well, you want to be able to build a good website that converts sales. A lot of people have a good brand identity, a good product, they know their ICP, but their website is just terrible to the point where they actually can't get any sales. So the only sole purpose a website exists is to get sales, is to get the conversion. Conversion rate matters a lot, because even just a single improvement to the website can double CVR, which doubles how much money you're making without having to change anything as far as marketing or any of that other tedious work. So some rules to have on your website is you want your brand to have a clear brand identity. So when somebody comes and clicks on your website, they should immediately feel some type of emotional connection to the brand you're selling. You want a strong hero image, which is what's right here. Good social proof visible down here. A clear CTA, such as shop now on your product page. And then you want to make sure that you design your website for mobile users, because the majority of people shopping from your website are going to be on mobile. I believe 92% of people who have shopped from my clothing brand first purchased on a regular mobile device. So as you're building your website, this is currently my website, and I'm going to tell you what makes my website a good website. One thing is urgency at the top, not fake urgency, but realistic urgency. A lot of people see this a lot, and this encourages people to come on my website and immediately pay and immediately shop, because they have the feeling that if they don't shop right now, they're going to miss out on this quote unquote deal. Next thing is an upsell, and this is free shipping on orders over $99, because you want people to spend more money on your website, right? The more money you can wring out of one customer is better for you overall in the long run. You're making more profits, and you're pulling in customers who actually like your brand and what you're building. Hero image and text over it to actually speak out to your ICP. You could come up with your title on your website through that niche positioning statement you made earlier, and then just adjust the audience right beneath it. A shop now header. So this is a CTA, basically enticing them to come and shop with a clothing brand. The whole purpose of your website is to have as least friction as possible. So what that is things that a customer has to do before they can actually check out, and you want to limit that as much as possible, because you want people to be able to go on your website, purchase, and leave as quick as possible. So right here for my product page, I have every single product listed on my homepage, to where people can just tap the color they want, click on it, and immediately check out, because you don't want people to have to go through a collection go through the home page, find the collection page, click on the collection page, choose the product, and then choose the color, and then choose the size, and then check out. You want it to all be smooth, easy, and as quick as possible. Next thing is social proof. If somebody is coming to your clothing brand through top of funnel content, which I'm going to get into earlier, they're not going to feel as comfortable spending their money on your clothing brand. So social proof is really good because it tells people that, hey, other people are buying the clothes, they're actually getting them, and they're actually liking the clothes they got, so you should too. And also, whenever you're running ads, but this is different for each brand, by the way. Some people print off of sending their customers to their homepage. Some people print off a product page. Majority is product page because remember, like I said, friction. If somebody clicks on an ad or watches that ad should immediately bring them to the product page, so they just add it and check out. It avoids the hassle of them having to go through the homepage, find the product, and then click on it. Because if they can immediately brought to the product page they just saw and then check out, it makes it so much easier for you and for them. Even your product page without the homepage, this is actually what is actually probably even more important than the homepage, because this is actually what sells people on whether they want to actually purchase the clothes or not. So your product images, you want to have a minimum of 5 images, different angles, a lifestyle shot, on body shot, flat lay shot, whatever it is. You want to make sure it's consistent and it's super high quality. You want to make sure you have clear and simple product titles. Don't try to make it overly long. You want a person to be able to immediately read it and easily see it. Description, you want to lead with feeling, because remember that emotional aspect. You want to follow the facts, the quality, the GSM, how it fits, and then answer some questions as well. And then reviews. Oh, have a review page beneath your product, because at the end of the day, you want people to know that other people are purchasing and enjoying these clothes. A size guide, because everybody's body is different. Some people want to see how the clothes will fit on them, so make sure you leave a good size guide for them to take a look at. And then next thing you want is shipping info, because nobody wants to place an order and have to wait the longest time to receive it. They want to know when they're getting the order and how fast they're getting it, because some people are buying for gifts, some people are buying for holidays, some people are moving and they want the items to come in before they move away. So you want to make sure that you're very transparent with your shipping times as well. And all these are so important. A 1% improvement on the conversion rate on somebody doing $100,000 a month is an extra $1,000 per month without them having to spend more money on other stuff. So imagine if my conversion rate was 0.5% and I was doing 100K a month. Imagine if I was able to bring that up to just 1%. Now I'm making double what I was making before just by making changes to my website. So it's super important that you have all these things listed out, because with a better website, you can have the same traffic, the same ad spend, and pull in a lot more revenue. So make sure you have good product photos, good social proof, a fast page, a clear size chart, a good upsell to bring in more money through each customer, and an email capture and pop up where people can join your email SMS list and they can come shop with you again. Remember, LTV. But before you actually drop, you want to build and curate your audience, because a warm email list converts 3 to 8% on launch day. SMS converts at 8 to 15%. So think about it, 500 email plus 200 SMS subscribers can produce dozens, hundreds of orders before a single piece of content goes out to the public. And that's what separates brands that actually do sell out drops and brands that just do guesswork. So your email and SMS is really the only audience that you actually own, because social media following is rented. Because literally your Instagram account could, anything can happen. Your Instagram account could randomly get suspended. Your TikTok page could get shadow banned for no reason, but your email and SMS list is always yours to own. So your social following, the algorithm decides who sees your content. Platform campaign tomorrow. You typically only reach 3 to 10% of your followers through Reels, and you don't own the relationship. But email and SMS list, you can choose who gets the message, who you want to send out and market to. Nobody can take it from you, and open rates from 20 to 90. And open rates can be 20 to 98% depending on how you run your email and SMS list, and you own the relationship completely. Because big brands generate 25 to 40% of their total revenue generally from email and SMS at no additional cost, without having to spend money on ads or any other additional marketing expenses. So you want to make sure that the best way to capture email and SMS leads is through your website. So whenever you haven't dropped yet, you should have your password page enabled on your website. So go to Shopify, online store preferences, password protection, and hit enable. And then you want to customize that password page with your logo, brand colors, and a teaser line, and treating the audience, telling them like, oh, something is coming. And you want to embed. Use Klaviyo for email and SMS, by the way. Klaviyo is a good email and SMS platform that allows you to reach out to customers both via email and through their phone numbers. And you want to embed a sign up page on your password page so people can go in and put their information and sign up so you can notify them whenever you drop. And now that you do that, every visitor that comes to your funnel leaves with their information on your email and SMS list. But now that you have your password page built out, here comes to actually how to build hype for your clothing brand drop so you can sell out organically through content without even having to run paid ads. So one is going to be building anticipation. So once you're already posting content, you build a following, you're going to want to entice them. This is for your first drop, by the way. So one, build anticipation. So this is you telling the meaning behind your brand, behind the scenes, quality teasers or unboxing videos, kind of just intriguing your audience, letting them know that, oh, you have something new coming out. Next thing is actually showing the product, introducing it to your audience, styling it in different ways. Show even maybe more in depth behind the scenes behind your manufacturer, and actually show the process of you building out that product. Because if you can show the process and how hard it was for you to build out that product, it's going to increase the perceived value on it, so people are going to want it more. Next, you're going to be creating urgency. So this is telling people that like, hey, maybe we only have 50 pieces, or hey, I'm not restocking after this drop, or hey, I'm going to allow the first 3 orders to be refunded, something like that. Create urgency, let them get hyped, excited for the drop coming, allow them to feel like they're going to be winning something by participating with this drop. And the next thing you know is actually launch week. So this is you constantly selling the pieces, posting on your story, saying, hey, sizes are selling out. We only have this much left. Cop while you can. Packing orders, behind the scenes of you packing orders, really just creating more hype and urgency as the drop is already active. So whenever you're running your drop, you want one principle, and that's going to be scarcity. Because if you're saying that you only have 150 pieces instead of 500, it creates genuine urgency and tells people that, hey, oh my gosh, I gotta shop now, or I'm not gonna be able to get it again. Principle number 2 is create VIP access, and that's going to be allowing people to actually feel special. Because if you treat people special, it's going to feel them more inclined to actually come and purchase with your clothing brand because you're putting them at such a high level. The next thing is going to be documenting everything. So that is what I was telling you earlier about building trust, urgency, and engagement with your drops. So through your email and SMS list, this is a good structure you can actually use to do your drops. So before you drop, you want to send out a VIP email and SMS text to go out and say, hey, we're dropping in so-and-so, just to notify people that you are about to drop, kind of warm them up. Next thing is launch time. This is when you actually do launch the drop, and you tell everybody in your email and SMS list to come and tap in with your drop. Post on all social media pages to let customers and followers know what's happening. Update stories as inventory is selling out, creating more urgency for people to shop with your clothing brand. Track engagement. Make sure you're super strong engagement in the first hour. What I like to do to boost engagement for my drops is by doing giveaways, and then keep on creating urgency. And then once you're done selling and you've sold out everything, make a sold out piece. So for those that didn't come and shop with your brand this time, they know that you're serious about selling out. So next time they also feel more inclined to come and shop with your clothing brand. And you want to make sure that you're having drops pretty frequently, but at a good pace too. Because if you drop too much, it makes nothing feel special. Your urgency is no longer valid. People don't care about it anymore. And then people have no reason to move fast and actually shop with your clothing brand. And if you don't drop enough, momentum dies between drops. New followers have to wait months before experiencing anything new, and you end up losing them as followers as well. So the sweet spot to drop is between a month to 2 months, in my opinion. That way you have enough to sell out, clean out inventory on old drops, figure out best sellers and not the best sellers, and reiterate products to actually match your community and do another job to keep them hype and engaged. Now let's talk about organic marketing, because marketing is actually everything when it comes to a business structure. The best way to reach out to people through organic marketing is through Instagram and TikTok. And this is actually how the algorithm promotes your video, and this is how people blow up and go viral on their videos. So one is going to be watch time and completion rate. The percentage of a video, that is the percentage of a video someone watches, is the strongest signal. A 15-second video watched in full by multiple people beats a 60-second video where most people are leaving at 10 seconds, because the algorithm awards completion rate a lot, because that means your hook is working, your video is good in engaging, and people actually like it. And then TikTok and Instagram is going to see that and push it out to more people to see and interact with, and that's how you start getting more views and blowing up with your clothing brand. So as far as that hook, that is going to be that 1.5-second decision at the start of your video, and that actually decides, and that's actually the deciding factor to keeping people watching the video or having people click off the video because they're not interested. So every creative decision you make should be evaluated against, does it make someone watch longer? Does it make someone want to watch it again? Does it make somebody want to share? Does it make somebody want to comment? Does it make somebody want to like? Does it make it somebody want to come and actually follow the page? If not, that's not the right content, regardless of how good it looks, because each content you're creating should have a clear purpose or goal. But without content pillars, your feed is just random, and random feeds don't build audiences, nor do they fit your aesthetic. They're just random posts. So you want to make sure that you have some type of consistency behind your posts. So one's going to be brand purpose. That's why you built this. The story, the conviction, your highest trust content. Next is going to be product quality. So that's going to be showing our fabric details, what's good about the piece, design process, packaging. And this is going to be what builds perceived value. Next is going to be social proof and community. So that's going to be people in your clothes, reviews, creators, behind the scenes of orders going out, because this allows people to build more trust with your clothing brand. Next is going to be education and value. So this is actually going to be creating that emotional connection with your customer, telling them what the brand is about, what you guys are into, what do you guys believe, what are you guys standing for as a community. This is where your followers become buyers and your buyers become part of your community. Next is going to be culture and lifestyle, and this is going to be the world your brand exhibits to the audience. So what are you trying to convey to the world with your clothing brand, essentially? A target mix is 50% top of funnel content, which is going to be pillars 1 and 5. Pillar 2 is going to be middle of funnel content. Bottom of funnel content is going to be, and actually bottom of funnel content is going to be pillar 3 and 4, because most brands over index. Now, let me tell you guys the difference between TikTok and Instagram. TikTok is a discovery platform first. Your audience isn't following yet, and every video is a chance at a new impression, because TikTok native content is really good for actually blowing up on TikTok. And that's content that doesn't look like an ad. It uses trending sounds and formats adapted to your brand voice. It's raw and fast paced rather than just looking as high quality as possible. And it shows something real and authentic without looking super salesy or branded. And you want to make sure you're making a minimum of 2 to 3 posts per day, especially when you are starting to grow out. And you want to make sure you're consistent with it too over 30 to 60 days, because TikTok does reward consistency. Like even now, as a clothing brand that's doing over $1 million a year, even I still post 5 times a day on TikTok. So there's no reason why, as a starting clothing brand, you shouldn't be posting at least 3 times a day on TikTok, because you're starting off, you want to build engagement, grow those followers. So make sure you're doing just that. Instagram is where the relationship deepens, because some people come over from TikTok to your Instagram page, or some people follow you straight from Instagram. And Instagram allows you to touch and reach more of your followers. You can make grid posts, post videos, post on your story. It's how you literally communicate and reach out to your community, which is through Instagram. You want to audit your page right now and what your brand profile looks like. You want it to immediately convey something. So does your bio immediately tell your target audience who this is for? Do the first grid post create an aesthetic somebody would want to follow and track? Is there a clear link or drive anywhere that converts people looking at your page into a customer? And if the answer is no, you want to absolutely fix that before you drive traffic to anywhere, including your website. Oh. Next, we're going to absolutely capitalize on that hook, because the hook is where 90% of people stop watching if your hook is bad. And let me tell you what actually forms a good hook. The visual hook is the most attention grabbing hook because this is immediately what people are seeing when they first click on your video. So don't save your best moment or the most interesting thing for later in the video. You want to make sure it's right smack dab at the start of the video because it's going to keep people more optimistic and wanting to watch the video longer. Next thing is going to be text on screen. A lot of viewers do like watch videos with their sound off, or a lot of people, or when it comes to actually reading text on screen, people's brains are actually just naturally reading the text on the screen, which is subconsciously keeping them more engaged with the video. So if you are making content, I do recommend having some text on screen, just so people are actually more engaged with the video than just actually watching and hearing what comes out of it. Next is going to be the pattern interrupt. There's going to be the hook, because at the end of the day, whenever you're creating content on TikTok and Instagram, the whole purpose of your video is to grab the viewer's attention and to let them immediately know what you have going on and what you're selling. So your hook should feel different from everything else in the feed, because if people have been scrolling, sitting there doom scrolling for a long amount of time, if a video pops up and looks familiar to everything else they just seen, they're going to scroll past it. But if it's unexpected, that's what grabs their attention and keeps them watching. There are 7 hook types, and we can get into that later. One is going to be question, one is going to be result first, one is going to be controversy, one is going to be relatable, one is going to be behind the scenes, one is going to be transformation, and the other one is going to be social proof. And now with those hooks, once you have your hooks dialed in, there are typically 5 main different types of videos. One is going to be lifestyle. So that's your product in real life. It helps your customers imagine themselves wearing and doing things in your product. Next is going to be review / UGC videos. And these are going to be real customer experiences. People telling you that they shop with your clothing brand and why they love your brand and the clothes so much. Next is going to be text ads. So these could be like static images, like offer discounts, things of that nature, because it has bold captions, it works without sound, and it's good for promotions, restocks, and urgency with their clothing brand. And there's going to be on body, different angles, because everybody wants to buy and invest money into a good product. So it helps your buyers visualize how it actually looks and how it will look on them as well. Next is going to be a flat lay, and this is super good for showing certain details of your piece, such as fabric, the embroidery, how it fits. Flat lay details are a really good way to examine all of that as well. So these same 5 formats are currently what I use in my ads manager to spend over $300,000 and to make over $1 million with ads, because the best organic content becomes the best paid ad. So you make sure whenever you're creating content, even if you are posting them organically, you keep them and you save them somewhere, because when it comes to making ads, it's going to help you a whole lot. You don't want to take up so much of your time making content. So you want to do something called content batching, which is where, like, when you see brands post so many times every single day, they're not going out every single day and shooting different concepts of content. They're doing something called content batching, which is where they take one session out of their day or one session out of their week to film a whole bunch of content that they can spread over a long amount of time. So make sure whenever you go out to get content, before you do that, you plan 5 to 7 concepts. You write the hooks, you know where you want to do it, so you can execute it. When you get there, film everything possible. Even if an idea even pops up into your head randomly on the spot, make sure you take it down, because if you have multiple angles, multiple looks, um, it'll help a lot when it comes to making more short-term content. After the session, um, you should have at least minimum 7 pieces or ideas of content you're able to edit and execute on your page. And location does vary, so make sure whenever you're choosing a location, you're being wise about it too. And make sure you are rotating it, because nobody wants to see the same plain spot over and over and over again. So make sure you're doing like graffiti walls, grass fields, parking garages, art district, boat walls, locations, universities, gas stations, shopping districts. It can literally be anywhere. You know your brand aesthetic. You know how you want to portray your brand. Choose multiple different spots that work for you and your audience. Next is going to be influencer marketing, and this is literally my favorite thing for clothing brands that are just coming up that don't have much followers or social proof yet on their page, or haven't even sold clothes yet at all. Because if you're able to get a third-party validation from somebody in your niche that's already really big, your audience will already might automatically trust you because they trust them. The creator already has built up trust with their audience. They're wearing their product. Now the audience trusts you and they're coming to purchase from you as well. Because when a viewer follows and they show the products, some of that trust the viewer has and the creators transfers to the product, which allows them to come and shop. And the better the creator relates to your ICP, the better for you as well, because you guys are all believing in the same thing. And also, don't just invest your money into big followers. You want to actually look at the engagement they have, their following, because a creator with 500,000 followers with the wrong audience, not in your ICP, will underperform than a. Because I think about it, if I'm a Christian clothing brand, right, and I send out my clothes to an influencer to promote it for me, and all he does is post guns and smoke and drink and talks about lustful things, right? Nobody from his audience is going to come and shop with for my clothing brand because his audience lives for the exact opposite of what my clothing brand stands for. But if I'm able to send out my clothes to an influencer with 10,000 followers, but he's a Christian influencer, to where his whole following is Christians, then think about how well that is going to work for me because his audience automatically relates to what it is that I am building. Getting your hand, because I have worked with over 600 influencers, and getting your products to these hands of these influencers requires a system and not just individual outreach. So I say you want to tier the creators you reach out to 10 to 15. So whenever you're first small, starting out and you're reaching to a small select individual creators, you want to make sure that you send them a product as a personal note and you follow up so they actually post in their clothes. And that's once you reach out to more creators, you send them a product and a standard note. So but make sure whenever you work with each creator, you give them a unique discount code based off of, so that way you're able to track how many people from their following are actually coming to shop with your clothing brand through their discount code, so you can see how engaged their audience is with your clothing brand. You can find creators by going to TikTok or Instagram and by going to TikTok or Instagram Explorer, and you just type in your niche in the search bar and look at content creators that pop up for your niche. Follow them, and TikTok and Instagram has a thing where you can follow people who are alike. So just click on that and start going through, and Instagram and TikTok will immediately pull people's profiles that kind of create the same content and has the same audience as them. Now, apart from organic and influencer marketing, a lot of clothing brands, when it comes to running paid ads, they use UGC content because UGC is literally the best type of content you can use when creating your ads, because UGC carries an organic credibility. And when you put money behind that organic credibility, the same content that performed well organic through UGC content will do good with ads because the trust signal is already baked in. The algorithm already approved of that video. So now that you already know that that creative worked, it stopped the scroll, it got people engaged. Once you put money behind it, you know it's going to print you money. So as you're tracking and working with creators, you're going to hit them up, see which one had the best engagement, ask them to use their video for ads rights. You want to run that video as a TikTok or Meta ad and test to see if it actually works via ads. Because you don't need a great production budget to create ads. The best ads are already being made by creators who love your brand. You just need to reward them by actually posting in your clothing brand and then just taking that post and running it as a paid ad. Now, next thing is going to be actually funneling your email and SMS list into recurring revenue, because if you're not utilizing email and SMS to its fullest, you're going to be leaving so much money on your table, because every number you could track, followers, views, likes, your email and SMS list size, engagement is the only one that's actually directly tied to how much money you're bringing in with your clothing brand. Like a typical rule of thumb for email and SMS is however many people you have factored into your list size, you should have generated at least 44 times that amount. Like, let's say for me, for example, right? I have 40,000 people in my SMS list, right? So if I take that 40,000 and I multiply by 44, So let's say for me, for example, right? I think right now I currently have 32,000 people on my SMS list, right? So if I take 32,000 and multiply it by 44, that means I should have made $1.4 million for my clothing brand based off of my list size, which we're actually close to right now. Ooh, I actually did just get a sale. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. When it actually comes to running your email and SMS list, there are 4 automations you should be running forever that should be working with you. One is going to be your welcome flow. One's going to be an abandoned cart. One's going to be a welcome flow. So that's when people first come on your website. You want to immediately welcome them with a pop-up. And next one's going to be an abandoned cart flow. So this is if anybody leaves your website without purchasing, you should be immediately messaging them again to come back on your website and shop with a special offer or something. There's going to be a post-purchase flow, which is going to be thanking them for shopping and then trying to upsell them after the sale has already been made. The fourth one is going to be a win-back flow, which triggers after a certain amount of inactivity. So whether they're not engaging with emails or SMS going out, you're going to tell them that, hey, we miss you as a customer. Come back and experience with us and give them a stronger incentive. Now, when it actually comes to creating a good email flow, it actually matters what your email looks like, because if your email is boring and it's or super long and texty, people aren't going to click on it and come and experience what your clothing brand again. So you want to be direct, you want to have a curiosity gap, you want to make sure you include social proof, urgency, and even brand building as well. So this could be a personal message towards your ICP, or it could be like a storytelling, essentially. Like here is an example of what a good email looks like. Branded logo at the top tells you exactly the offer, tells you to come back and shop. Social proof is right here, letting people know that they like it. So just reflect that whenever it comes to creating your email and SMS flow. SMS is even more important because SMS has a 98% open rate apart from just emails, which is why overusing it can backfire, because you don't want to spam them with messages the same way you can send out emails, because nobody wants to hear an announcement from a clothing brand every 3 days. So make sure you're only sending out max 2 messages a month, preferably for me. You only notify them about new drops, which is what I like to do, or if anything big is happening with the clothing brand, like maybe a rebrand or something, then you can send out a mass SMS, but make sure you are being wise whenever you're sending out SMS messages. But after your brand is already working organically, your systems are dialed in place. Now it's time to scale. And this is where paid ads come into place. Because personally, my first month, I was fully organic. I did 10K. My organic was working because I was able to make 5 figures. And then I just took my organic playbook and I put it into ads. And the next thing you know, I actually 3 times what I had made with my first month. So how it works is, so make sure whenever you're getting to ads, you understand that ads don't fix a broken product or a weak offer. They just amplify what's already working. If your organic isn't working, then your paid ads aren't going to work that much either. So when you're actually buying, so this is what you're actually buying whenever you run ads, is distribution, not guaranteed sales, distribution. Because remember, paid ads are just putting money behind a video you've already made to reach out to a larger group of people. So you want to first create your ad, allow the algorithm to understand the ad and test it to small audiences. And then based off of how good the ad is performing, based off of clicks, adds to carts, purchases, cost per clicks, and other metrics, your algorithm starts to expand to similar people, and your meta pixel gets data, so it figures out who to actually target the videos to. So a cool rule of thumb for creating a good ad campaign through meta ads is going to be setting the objective for your campaign to sales/purchases. Ad set, I recommend using Advantage Plus because of Meta's Andromeda update. Broad targeting, allow Meta to figure out who to actually show the ads to. And then the actual creative is going to be what you've been working on organically and what you've been working on when it comes to the hook and actually curating that emotional connection to your audience through that video. And like I said, you want to make sure you're running the traffic on your ad to your product page, so people can immediately come and just check out on their page once they've already seen your ad. And you don't find winning ads just by guessing. You find them by actually testing volume with the system. So step one, you want to take 3 to 5 products, create one flat lay with each with a consistent. So if you are dropping multiple products and you want to figure out which product is your winning product, what you can do is take them, run a flat lay ad with each photo just by itself, same background, etc. Put the same spend behind each product photo every single day and see which one has the best engagement. Some good metrics to go by is if a ad has a click-through rate under 1%, you want to kill it because people aren't actually clicking on the ad when they see it. If it's 1 to 2%, it's pretty good. That means people are interacting with it. If it's 2 to 3%, it's super good. That means you want to make more variations on it and see why people are liking it, make it better. If it's above 3%, you're a go. If it's above 4%, you're insane. When it comes to creative validation, you want to make 7 to 12 different creatives, same product, different angles, hooks, formulas, and run all 12 in an ad set. You want to budget it about $5 to $10 and spend each ad. That's kind of how you want to go based on how much you're spending in that campaign every single day. And you want to kill what has under a 1% click-through rate, and you want to let the winners scale, and you want to allow Meta to put more spend behind the ad creators that are working and hitting more people. UGC consistently performs better for clothing brands because of that trust factor. So your bet ad creative is probably going to be a UGC top of funnel creative. So make sure you're implementing and you're using a lot of those. So some metrics to understand when it actually comes to killing an ad and what makes an ad good or bad is going to be these. If an ad has a low click-through rate but no add to carts, you want to absolutely kill the creative because it's not working in any way, shape, or form. If it has a high click-through rate but no add to carts or no purchases, that means the creative is working but the ad copy is wrong. So you want to fix the call to page, like the CTA, or maybe if it's even a website problem. Maybe your website's not converting. So you want to make sure that you go check your website and make sure you have all the elements that creates a good converting website. It has a high click-through rate but a low ROAS, which means it's converting, but it's not converting profitably. That means it's a margin issue. So make sure your pricing structure is good, or maybe it could actually be a creative issue because if your creatives aren't matching the quality, if your creatives are matching the perceived quality your item has or the pricing it has, then you're getting a lot of low intent buyers who are willing to spend that much money for your product. So make sure your ad is high quality if you are pricing super high. And if you have a high CTR, you have a high ROAS, that means the ad is performing well and you want to scale it. Whenever you are scaling winning ads, you only want to bump the budget by 20 or 30%. You never want to just double or triple the amount because you want to make sure that Meta is able to actually learn how to push out those videos to more people. Because if you're running an ad at $50 a day, and let's say Meta is reaching out to 150 people in a niche, if you immediately bump the spend by 2x, now Meta has to target those 50 people and have to figure out and have to find 50 entirely new people to target to, which is guesswork, and it makes Meta struggle to learn how to actually target your audience you're trying to sell to. But a KPI you want to track, most importantly, is your ROAS. This is your return on ad spend. 2x ROAS is break even for most brands. 3x ROAS is the profitable mark for most brands. If you're at a 4x, you're killing it. Scale that aggressively. But once your paid ads are working, you want to delegate and scale your clothing brand even quicker because you want to focus on majority of the tasks that will get your brand to that higher revenue goal each month and not kill yourself by handling the small tedious tasks that you could have performed by a team. So when it comes to delegating work and hiring people for your team, you could go to what's it called onlinejobs.ph to actually hire people for super cheap. They work for like $3 to $5 an hour. It's crazy, and they do good work too if you find a good employee. What you want to do is hire somebody to handle customer service. This is literally the most time-consuming work, and is the easiest to hire somebody for. So make sure you're hiring somebody for customer service to handle your email, SMS, or Instagram support. Next is going to be somebody who does content editing. So you want to teach them your full marketing style, your ICP, emotional connections, so they can handle marketing and post your content for you and figure out what works and doesn't work. There's going to be order fulfillment. You don't want to spend your time, spend 4 or 6 hours a day packing and shipping orders when you could be putting 4 to 6 hours a day into actually scaling your clothing brand. So if you want, make sure you hire somebody in-house to handle your shipping, or you can go the route of getting a 3PL fulfillment company to handle your shipping for you. Next is going to be paid ads management. You don't want to constantly be your ads manager every single day, turning off ads, putting in new ones, figuring out what works. You should have somebody do that for you. If you're actually getting a content editor that understands your brand deeply at a good level, they could actually probably be your paid ads manager. You just have to spend a lot of time teaching them, because you do want to get somebody that knows what they're doing, because paid ads is probably where a majority of people's traffic is coming from. And I say a lot of people do make a mistake of getting an agency, and you never want to hire an agency until you actually understand the fundamentals yourself, because an agency, you could be paying an agency and not even know if they're doing good work, because you don't even know if they're doing good work because you don't even know what the work is they're doing. So you want to make sure that you actually understand the fundamentals, and you know how to run ads yourself before wasting and spending money on the agency without you even being able to validate their work. So stage one, everything you're doing is probably you hit a revenue ceiling, which is the time you're putting into your business. You delegate it. You delegate that hard work by freeing up your time to focus on making more money with your business. And then by stage three, you just have a full system and a team full of A players who are absolutely working and killing it when it comes to running your clothing brand. So whenever it comes to building out your clothing brand, these are what you want to have dialed in order. That's going to be your brand identity, your product, your website, planning your drops, actually dropping your organic marketing, influencer marketing, making sure your email and SMS is dialed in, and then paid ads. And then once your paid ads are good and making money for you, then you absolutely hire a team, and then you just compound and you build from there. But with that being said, there's the entire blueprint and framework that I use to scale my clothing brand to over $1 million in revenue. Now, the serious part about it is whether it's not just me scaling my clothing brand, but you guys did stay and watch to the end of this video. So I know you guys are serious about starting and scaling your clothing brand to 7 figures, just like I did. Now, the only part here from is whether you want to take the knowledge and information from this video and go start and build your own clothing brand. But you guys will go through a lot of trial and error and a lot of heartache and headache when it comes to actually running and scaling your clothing brand. And a lot of people actually face issues that put them out of business and causes their clothing brand to end up failing, even with the full framework, just because of the issues and problems that come along when it comes to running a clothing brand without having anybody to address it. Or if you're actually generally ready to skip all that heartache and go straight into actually scaling and building a profitable clothing brand that helps out a large community of people, you can go in my bio and fill out that form, or personally DM me, and we can speak with how you can work with me so we can take your clothing brand and scale it to 6, 7 figures, even potentially 8 figures, like I want to scale my clothing brand to. A lot of people have a dream when it comes to growing their business, but we can turn your dream into a genuine vision that you can achieve. Either way, I want to help you guys out and see you guys succeed. So if you are serious about taking that next step and taking action into actually running and scaling a clothing brand, just go in my bio, hit me up, and we can discuss further on how we can get you to your goals. So with that being said, I love all of you guys. Hope you guys have a blessed day. Love you all.